Road. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to week 7 here in CU 101 Culinary Foundation. Chef Matthew and I welcome you to another fine live session. We are officially in the second half of the show, and Chef Matthew and myself and a bunch of the other chefs have been talking about how excited we are to be working with this crew of students this time around. Your performance has been outstanding. At the end of the day, we all sit down and we take a look at numbers, where everybody's at and how everybody's doing with their grades. And this class is just really tearing it up. So we are proud of all of you. Thank you so much for all your hard work and effort. And I think it's paying off. How's everybody's learning going? Yeah? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? Yeah? Some Marcus? Yeah, you got your thumb up. What about you, Alicia? You learning some stuff? Cool. We have seen a lot of progress. I think you probably remember back on day 1 of week 1 when we had our first live session, we asked that you think about where you were at that day and then where you are going at the end of the course. Has anybody seen growth? Seen some improvement in your skills and your abilities? Yeah, Robert's up there. Sharon shaking her head. The other Sharon too. Monica. See, that's awesome. That's what it's all about. And you know, when you see yourself growing and we see you grow as well, that's what makes it worth it day in and day out. I'd like to take a moment before we get rolling here tonight to introduce a very special part of our team. And you can see her waving with excitement down there. We're really excited that she took a moment to join us. And Chef Janet, you want to take the floor?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to step in for just a moment. Thank you, Chef Warren, Chef Matthew, for letting me do this. Ladies and gentlemen, I am the lead chef instructor for the culinary program. And I wanted to take a moment to say, I think you're awesome. I couldn't be prouder of the work you guys are doing. Okay, you ready? You're a little bit in love with cooking, aren't you? Because I can tell you guys are fantastic. So just keep that passion going. You know, I say this, and yes, this is being recorded. Cooking is a lot about someone you love. And if you truly love them, you spend this time getting to know them and a little bit more and a little bit more. And this is a lifelong love affair that you guys have started, and I couldn't be more thrilled for you. Now, as you guys go through the program, I'll be popping in every once in a while, seeing how you're doing. But mostly, if you need me, my phone number is in the chat box. If you want to text me photos of your food, do text me your photos. Just make sure you tell me who you are, what class you're in. But otherwise, this is my goal for you guys. Besides learning and embracing everything, personally, I want to dance at your graduation. So this means you've got to get through all your classes so I can boogie. And I tell you, this little hiney of mine is ready to get down. So you guys have fun, and I'll see you around. You need me, you know where I am. Chef Warren, Chef Matthew, thank you.
You're awesome. Thanks for popping in. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the support as well. So that's awesome. Chef Janet is also another good source of information, another good source of support as well for all of you for your journey here. Week 6, everybody. How'd it go? What kind of feedback do we have out there? Look at Rudy's up there, thumbs up. Monica, why don't you want to share with me what you think about the doing the court bouillon?
About meeting. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. No.
Problem with the cutting? Can you hear me?
Yep, we're good.
But it turned out so delicious, and my kids loved it.
Oh, wow.
So I really enjoyed that. It was the first time I did it, and the flavors came out so wonderful.
Awesome.
So I really had a good time with that.
Awesome. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. I like that. That's really good news. Marcus, what's up, buddy?
How you doing?
Good. Tell me about that Beurre Blanc. How'd it go this week?
It went well. You know, a lot of time messed me up, but other than that, it came out. It came out great.
Did you get the emulsion going in it?
Yes.
Yeah.
My thing was, I was just trying to. As I was doing it, it was trying to be in like rush because the time I had just got back in the States, this Sunday. And so that's why it was like me trying to, get all that stuff situated, trying to do it. I maintained to get everything situated though. And it came out great.
That's tough, man. Yeah, trying to make it happen. Well, good job sticking with it and making it happen. Yeah. There's a saying that chefs have, and that is the show goes on and failure is not an option. So we make it happen regardless of the circumstances. Who wants to share about the how'd you guys like the pan-steamed vegetables? What about you, Daniel? Daniel Quigley, what's up there, man? Oh.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up?
Yeah.
There you go.
It was good. Sorry, it's loud here.
That's okay. You're good.
Okay.
Yeah. But do you have any problems with it?
No, actually, it was the vegetables were the boring part.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? They seem like a boring part right now, but when you're cranking an industry, you're going to be blasting vegetables out. And you're going to remember this exercise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you'll probably do 70, 80 of those things a night, those pans, and you'll think, I know how to do it now. That's a good one, man. Yeah. Who else has any comments about week 6? Anyone else? Yeah, Rudy, what's up, man?
I do have one question about the was it supposed to have it? Mine had kind of like a acidic, it was very acidic. Was it supposed to happen, or did it not have the
Or the Beurre Blanc?
Yeah, the Beurre Blanc.
Yeah, the Beurre Blanc is supposed to have an acidic flavor, and it's generally paired with something delicate but a little bit fattier. And we talked about doing halibut, salmon, those types of fish that are a little bit higher in oil. And when you pair a very acidic sauce with that fat, it cuts through the fat and creates the flavor. It sounds like maybe you got a little bit too acidic, and you can always balance that acidity out with a little bit of something sweet, such as a touch of agave syrup, a touch of honey, or a touch of sugar, and that'll balance that acidity out right away.
Also, I used haddock. I can't pronounce it.
Haddock?
Haddock, and it actually turned out perfectly.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, haddock's a cold water fish too. That's also a great fish to smoke as well. And I'm not talking about rolling it up either. I'm talking about putting it in a smoke. And that goes real well.
Well, it was my first time ever having it, so it was actually pretty good.
That's
first
a
time
good fish. Good fish. Anybody
Yeah,
else have any questions?
Good way to cook it.
Anybody else have any questions about week 6? Jacqueline Lightfoot, what's going on?
Hey, Chef, how are you?
I'm good. And yourself? Uh-oh.
Huh?
Uh-oh, no more dancing for you.
That's what I wanted to talk about. I'm going to attempt, the surgery was Friday. I'm going to attempt my assignment tomorrow. Okay. And I don't know about chopping up potatoes and everything with the left hand. I'm sure I can get everything done, but it's not going to be the best because I'm right-handed, and I'm going to have to chop everything with the left hand. So I apologize for the assignment coming in late, but I did have the surgery just Friday. So I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. No worries. Send me a message after class. We'll work something out to accommodate you.
Okay.
We'll take care of you. No problem. Now, let's answer a couple more questions before we move on to this. How about Alicia? Alicia, what's up?
Yeah. Just wondering, has all the assignments been graded? Just waiting on the grader was Chef Matthew by.
Chef Matthew, you getting that?
I didn't hear. Nope.
Just was wondering, have all the assignments been graded yet?
No.
Because I haven't received the grade yet. Okay.
No. They all come in kind of at once, and I just start with Friday. I do Fridays, and then usually Sunday I start on Saturdays, and and from then on, and I try and do each day that came in first, so I get them, the first ones first. So.
Yep. First in, first out. Yeah.
Well, thanks for being patient.
Yeah, hang tight. All right, how about Sharon? What's up, Sharon?
On the butter.
Uh-huh.
Mine broke.
Okay.
I had it. It was going great. It was nice and creamy. And I turned to get my sauce bowl to put it in, and it just broke. It was just liquid.
Okay, 99.9%, 100% of the time, it's temperature, right? That causes that problem. So most likely your butter was either too cold or your pan was too hot, right? So we have to be over really low heat. We have to make sure that we only stir in 1 cube of butter at a time and wait till it's incorporated. After the sauce is complete, it's very important that you pull it off the stove, because if you let it there, if that sauce gets anywhere near a boil, guess what? It's going to separate. It's gone, right?
Yeah, chef's right on there. And you have to add that butter slowly, whisk it in all the way. And I mean, I will when I make it, I'll have the flame on high until that reduction is done, and then I'll turn the flame down to like medium and then start adding the butter. But if you're using an electric stove, that's not going to turn, that heat isn't going to go down fast enough. So you're going to have to move the pan off of the burner to cool it down to start adding the butter. And then you can put it back on when it's actually medium heat. But it's kind of tricky, especially with electric. It's even more tricky. It's just too slow. Too slow to change. So and then don't add all your butter too fast, because too hot will break it, too cold will break it. So it's tricky.
Good point. And I'm glad you brought up the point about electricity. When all of you, I'm starting to say y'all a lot, and I think that was because of that trip to South Carolina. It's just vocabulary. I can't even speak anymore. But once y'all get into the commercial kitchen, the industry, you'll rarely see electric appliances out there. We always use gas, and that's because the instant heat, the recovery heat, and the constant power that's behind that gas. So that's what we're using. Let's answer. Does that answer your question, Sharon? Are you good?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get to Rudy real quick before we turn the floor over to Chef Matthew. So,
I do have one other question. I'm thinking about this week with potatoes and everything made me think about this, but any words on our peelers?
No, but we can check into that.
Okay.
I'll send you a message. I'll ask about that after the class.
Okay, yeah, we haven't received I haven't received anything about it, so.
Of everything we do, the peeler has turned out to be the one thing, right?
Right.
It's going to come back. We'll get them. Yeah. Okay. All right. Chef Matthew, how's that garden doing?
Well, it's looking terrible. Well, actually, it looks nice because I pulled all the dead stuff out, and then I'm raking the leaves out of the yard. I'm going to dump them in my garden beds and let it do its thing over the winter.
Right.
Did that last year and had really good results. So really excited about that.
Composting.
Yeah, compost. And I kind of take everything I can find in the yard that's a scrap or a twig and get it chopped up and broken down and thrown in there. So little details as far as narratives go, that's something that I've been kind of trying to steer you guys on. The production notes, it's not really well articulated in the narrative itself, but it's where you do that text. If you're going to text those instructions need to be for each recipe item. So if I have 4 recipes for the assignment, then I'm going to need to see 4 little paragraphs of information for each recipe. So make sure you get all of those. And then the flavor journal is down where the flavor wheel part is on the narrative, and make sure you give me a taste, texture, consistency, and aroma for each recipe. So make sure you get all those in. And is anybody finding that practice? Anybody finding that good? Anybody finding that valuable? Because I've been kind of talking about it, the reason you do it, the reason how it's going to help you. These are things that chefs notice. These are things that chefs, taste, texture, consistency, aroma. When you go walking through the kitchen and your staff is cooking up a storm, you need to be able to walk by and go, hey, that doesn't smell right. Did you forget the sachet? You need to know that in an instant, because you're going to have a lot of stuff to worry about. Is that making sense, Chef?
That makes huge sense. I don't think at this point you realize the extreme value of that narrative. Chef Matthew's talking about walking through the kitchen and picking up on aromas. Absolutely 110%. How are you going to describe that dish to the culinary staff? I mean, how are you going to describe the flavors? Can you do that? And when you go to write menus, right? Menus are a sales tool. Are you going to be able to describe the flavor, the profile of the dish on a menu appropriately without the absolute knowledge of having done it before? When you're standing tableside, right, and you're trying to explain to a customer the flavor of your Wellington with your au jus, or your demi-glace, are you going to be able to explain it? Because the customer doesn't make sense with demi-glace, but they do understand the savory umami type flavors that you're explaining, the notes of cherry and everything else that make the people want to buy that food. As well, when you're working with your service staff, man, those narratives are going to pop into your head, because your service staff is your sales staff, right? They are the ones that are going to move your food. They are the ones that represent your restaurant. If you can't educate them properly, right? Can you imagine a server walking up to your table and you ask them, hey, how's the Chilean sea bass wrapped in banana leaf tonight? And they say, good, right? It doesn't really work that way, right? So that's why we have to use this narrative. Sorry about that spiel. It's kind of a tangent. Sorry.
Oh, that's cool. No, that's we're backing each other up here. That's what that information's about. I mean, just getting that practice. And I mean, soon you're going to be in a menu class and you're going to need to be able to write that. So if not for class, man, get it for your future in the industry. Sanitation, so far, sanitation is looking really good. Everybody's doing pretty well with that. Just make sure you get that little container that the strips come in. Make sure you put that right next to the Sani bucket and put the little test strip right on it. So then I can see that color, because, maybe my computer, maybe your computer, maybe your camera, there might be a little difference in color there. So I need to see that right next to it. Uniforms look good. And, we've been talking a lot about Beurre Blanc, so I hope if you didn't, and everybody that I've graded so far, I hope if your Beurre Blanc didn't come out, that you're going to try it again and you're going to nail it, because it just takes a little bit of practice. I see some heads nodding, so it's delicious.
If you don't mind.
And it's delicious, and I hope you all try that again.
What's up there, Oscar? You're waving your hand like crazy.
Chef, mine, it came out great. Last night, my wife made some pasta with the Beurre Blanc and steaks, and it was great.
Oh, that sounds super delicious, man.
It was great. I don't know if it is the right way to do it, but it was very good.
Once you learn that technique, what you do after that, there's no right and wrong.
Yeah.
No, I did well. I mean, it came out perfect. I mean, I like it. Basically, I like it.
Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. Thanks, Oscar. Leonora, what's going on there? Oh, you ran away.
Okay, how do I do it? All right.
You're good, man.
With the Beurre Blanc, I want to try it for my steaks, like the other student said, but I want to add like a blue cheese.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do that?
If I were you, this is what I would do. Beurre Blanc is traditionally made with white wine. However, red wines we traditionally pair with red meats. It's kind of an old school mentality. And when you use red wine in your Beurre Blanc, it becomes a Beurre Rouge. That Beurre Rouge, the flavors of the red wine, which is a bigger, more peppier flavor, will pair very well with the blue cheese or the Gorgonzola cheese. They'll mend. See how I'm using my flavor profile and my narrative to talk about this? Anybody?
That sounds delicious. Thank you.
It's $29.95, by the way. Okay.
It's definitely delicious. Yes.
All right, let's get one more question from Rudy up here up top, man. What's up, Rudy?
You mentioned something about the restaurant now. The server has no knowledge. I did post this in the chat too, but you said something about how if the server comes to your table and is like, oh, it's just good. But most of the time, restaurants won't let the servers like try the special of the day. That's the one issue that I mostly have when I go to a restaurant and want to ask, oh, how's the Wellington? And they have no knowledge of it because the chef won't let them try it.
Shame.
Why is that?
You're bringing up a great point, Rudy, and I'm glad that you're bringing that up. Every night in all the restaurants I've ever run, we not only put up the nightly special, but we'll put up 2 or 3 menu items each night, not only to check the quality of the food that's coming out of the kitchen, but to educate the service staff on what the actual flavors are. So shame on that restaurant for not doing that, because they have to realize the service staff is such a critical element in the dining experience. If they are not exposed to what they are selling, can you imagine buying a car from a guy that has no driver's license? I mean, think about it, man. It doesn't make any sense. Why would you buy food from a server that's never eaten the food before? Yeah. So they're salespeople. Yeah. All right, ladies and gents, Alicia, let's get your quick question before we move on to the next.
Just to know that trying to become a chef and not eating seafood, but that's where a lot of the stuff starts for people's taste buds. How's it to say that we have the same taste bud as others?
Check it out. There's a lot. That's a great question. I'm glad that you asked that. If you can't eat seafood, a lot of people can't because of certain allergies that are out there. And you know what? That's okay. But you have to learn to work around it. There's a lot of research you can do. And what's in between your eyes, right? There's that old joke. What'd the left eye say to the right eye? Something in between us smells, right? So you can always pick up on the aromas, which will help dictate a lot of the flavors. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Cool. Chef Matthew, did you have anything else?
No, just to back you up on that, I think it's really important that, you know, there are things you don't like. There are things I don't like, and I've learned how to cook them well. And that's just part of the job. And it's just kind of something that comes along. And there's also things that I never liked until I made it. Like I hated split pea soup until I made it. And then I was like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. So, you know, a lot of times that has something to do with it. So, you know, it'll come to you. And just keep practicing and know that you have to, there's still, you know, there's a lot of ways to cook things, but there's still good food and bad food. So,
yeah. You know, thank you, Chef Matthew, for bringing that up. You should never, ever, ever abstain from any food as a chef unless you have a medical purpose to do so, or a religious purpose. I guess we have to be politically correct, but you know, you should never abstain from any food. There are things that I don't care for, but there's very few things I won't eat. And there's very few things that I haven't tasted because I do give myself the opportunity to educate my palate so I can educate others with that flavor. So it's very, very important to do that. Ladies and gents, are you all good there, Chef Matthew? Did you say everything? Yeah, you all happy?
I feel satisfied.
Yeah.
I've spoken enough.
All right. So you need to sit down, have a glass of wine and a cigarette now, or what? Yeah. All right. Check it out. Ladies and gents, please make sure that you are posting attendance at least every 3 days. Once every 3 days. It's very, very important. You can do that by completing a knowledge check, watching a live session archive, attending the live session, doing a discussion forum, submitting your weekly assignment. It's very important every 3 days. Don't go 4 days without posting attendance, or 5 or 6 days, because we want to keep you near the program at all times. It really helps you grow. So it's a very, very important thing that we stick along those lines. And ladies and gentlemen, we are officially a little bit more than halfway through the program at this point. And like I was saying at the beginning of the class, we are proud, but we have to keep it going. Each and every day that you wake up, you have to remember why you're here. You have to remember what brought you here, right? Dreams come at a cost, right? Nobody's going to put a chef coat on you and give you the keys to the back door. You have to earn it. And that's the same thing of getting through culinary school. So put your seatbelts on, prioritize yourselves, right? You are building a better tomorrow. You are working on tomorrow today. So stick with it, right? And since we are a little bit more than halfway, if anybody is not feeling confident about their grade, you're not happy with your grade, you don't care for your grade, call me, right? Hey, Chef, I'm not doing well. I need help, right? Chef Matthew and I will do everything in our power to help you out because we are committed to your success. We really want to help you succeed. That's what our goal is as people, as chefs, and we also get to teach. So make sure, ladies and gents, reach out and talk to us if you're not feeling comfortable with your grade at this point in time. So week 7, this is kind of cool. How many people out there like to saute? Yeah, it's pretty cool. How many people are good with that old saute pan? How many, yeah, Robert up there is all over it, right? Jacqueline, what about you, Rachel? Yeah, you're pretty good at, yeah, all right. We're going to see what you got here in a minute. Let's take a look at our class page this week. Am I there, Chef Matthew?
There it is.
Hey, we're making, wait, is this it? No, it's not. There we are. All
There
right,
we go.
everybody, make sure that you're checking these videos out on a weekly basis. It only takes a few minutes to watch them, or less than a minute actually. But they do have a little bit of tidbit of information in there that will help you get through the forthcoming week. This week, ladies and gents, we have 2 knowledge checks, right? You're going to read your research materials, knowledge checks. Knowledge checks are due by when? Oh, perfect. Saturday, right? We want to get them in by Saturday. Week 7 knowledge conversion check. Okay, so you're going to go back to week 6, right here at the bottom of week 6. Somewhere around in here, we have the information in there. Where'd it go? I'll find it. I'll make sure it's up there for all of you to do the conversion knowledge check. And then there is no discussion forum this week. Yeah.
Wow.
That is so sweet. And then, so don't worry about doing a discussion forum this week. It's a bye week. And then live session. Thank you all for attending. You will be the ones that succeed. And if unfortunately you can't make it, make sure you watch that live session archive. Great way to post attendance. Hey, sauteing this week, we're going to be sauteing protein, bâtonnet of vegetables, and Palms puree, also known as mashed potatoes. Let's go back to where we're at. So we do have no discussion forum this week. Just want to make sure that you do reference the materials that were posted onto the week 6 class page for your conversion checklist for your knowledge. Don't forget to get your knowledge checks in by Saturday this week. If you have any problems, reach out and ask, right? So saute is going to be our next topic, and we're going to blow through this here. I'm not going to blow through it, but we're going to make sure that everybody understands what's going on. So saute, basically to sum that up, means to cook food very quickly over relatively high heat with a low amount of fat. And the term saute comes from a French word, like so many of our culinary vocabulary, literally means to jump, right? Sauter is actually the word, but saute does, it means to jump, and it kind of mimics what's going on in the saute pan, so that's very, very important. This is a dry heat cooking method. If you remember last week, we did use a moist or a wet cooking method by poaching. This week, we are doing a dry heat cooking method. Ladies and gents, this is a subject that you really need to zero in on. You will be doing this over and over and over again in industry. Saute is a very, very heavy method that is used. Now, when it comes to sauteing, there's a million different pans available out there in your lovely houseware section, right? You want to avoid them. You want to get a pan that is has a very heavy bottom on it. And the reason for that is that heavy bottom transmits the heat equally and evenly across the bottom of your saute pan, right? And then you want to have about a 2-inch curved lip on it. And that kind of defines the saute pan. Make sure there's a handle on there as well, which is very, very important. One of the biggest problems that we have with saute work, pay attention to this part, is called sweating. And what happens, you get a saute pan hot, and then you put your oil in it. Hot pan plus cold oil equals no stick. Hot pan, cold oil equals no stick. Can everybody remember that? It's critical. Hot pan, cold oil equals no stick, right? So we have our saute pan. We always get our saute pan hot first. That's critical, okay? It's got to be very, very hot. And then you're going to add a small amount of oil, traditionally enough to coat the bottom of the saute pan evenly. You're not deep frying food, right? You're not trying to, let your food swim. That's a bad thing. And then you're going to put your protein gently, skin side down if there's skin on it, or service side down into the saute pan. But what happens is a lot of people will put too much protein or too much product into that saute pan, which drops the temperature of the saute pan, and it forces that meat to begin to sweat and dry out. Whereas if you put the proper amount into the saute pan, it maintains its heat and it sears the exterior of the product and it maintains that moisture level. So it's very, very important not to overcrowd your saute pan, right? So be very, very conscientious of that. Otherwise, you're going to end up with dry food. That's one of the reasons that we want to have a very thick bottom on the saute pan, because it's going to help maintain that heat. You have to remember, if your saute pan is right around 600 degrees, right where it should be, between 500 and 600 degrees, if you put a piece of 41-degree chicken into that saute pan, it's going to lower the temperature of the pan, right? So we want to make sure that, number one, if we add a whole bunch of chicken to that pan, all of a sudden that pan's going to drop down to about 100 degrees. Everything's going to sweat. You're going to get, has anybody ever sauteed out there and you get all that moisture in the pan after you put the meat in there, right? It's called sweating, right? It's like people, put us in a hot environment, we're going to sweat, right? Yeah. But
I do.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Well, I used to when I was little. So we want to make sure that we don't overcrowd that pan so we can form that nice sear. Now, so we have our saute pan, right? Nice, thick, heavy bottom, 2-inch lip, round handle. Put our oil in it. What kind of oil do we use to saute with? Right? Okay, this is an ongoing topic. Number one, basic rule of thumb: do not waste your money on expensive oils such as hazelnut, such as extra virgin olive oil, and some of these other oils. It is a waste of money, and they have what we call very low smoke points. A smoke point, it is in an oil. An oil has two primary points, right? One is the smoke point. The other one is a flash point, and you want to avoid both of those. Smoke point is when the oil gets so hot that it is about to start smoking, right? Which changes the flavor of the oil, and then also creates burn, black stuff, impurities in the oil as well. Smoke point is when it catches on fire, and you don't want to be around when that happens. If your oil catches on fire in the kitchen, the best thing you can do is cover it up. The second best thing you can do is sprinkle it with baking soda, which will remove the oxygen and eliminate the flame. Do not put a towel over it. Do not put any wet liquids in it. Now, a saturated fat is probably the best type of fat that you can saute in. And the best way to describe this, if you can imagine oil as links of oxygen. To saturate the fat, they put hydrogen in between those links of oxygen, which raises the smoke point on the oil, right? There are some canola oils out there that are saturated. There are some other types of oils. Lard is saturated. Fry oil is also saturated. Peanut oil is a very saturated fat, fantastic for sauteing. Very high smoke point and very high flash point, which enables you to get your saute pan very hot without engulfing in flames, which is not the best scenario. So when we saute, try to stick with the peanut oil. You can stick with the canola oil. things like that. Those are the good oils to use. If you want to saute in butter, a great suggestion is to take half butter and then half canola oil or half peanut oil, and that will raise the smoke temperature of the butter and you won't burn nearly as quickly. So that's a good way to get around that, or to use clarified butter cut with peanut oil also works great for saute, and you still get that nice buttery flavor on there. So that's very, very important. So we talked about not crowding the pan, right? You'll be amazed at how often that happens. So tonight's first recipe tonight, we're doing the sauteed protein this week. That protein can be chicken, something preferably without bones. It can be a fillet of fish. It can be some type of beef. It can be like a New York strip steak. It could be a breast of chicken. That's what we recommend. Some of you out there are going to say, hey, should I coat it with flour? Should I not coat it with flour? There's a couple of schools of thought that go along in here. Number one, we've kind of gotten away in industry from coating things in flour because of the gluten intolerance that's popped up last week. So as soon as that goes over, then we'll start coating it with flour again. But that gluten intolerant thing, so we kind of got away from that. Coating it in flour, number one, provides a seal around the outside, is one of the reasons. Another reason is also will help thicken the pan sauce that is left behind as well. So those are the two primary reasons we coat with flour, but we don't do that so much anymore. It's kind of drifting away. So what you're going to do is you're going to get your saute pan very, very hot, right? You're going to add your oil, and you're going to lay, you want to grab your handle, right, and lay the protein away from you into the saute pan. Do not lay the protein towards you because that will force the oil to splash, and that becomes uncomfortable. Now, before we go to the actual recipe this week, we all did beurre blanc last week, right? This is an ideal opportunity to practice that sauce. What you will do is you will cook your protein, fish 140 degrees, chicken 160 degrees. You'll cook your chicken in your saute pan. You will turn the heat off. You will take your chicken out. Everybody following me so far? Chicken out. Pan on low. Just put your pan on low, right? You can add some shallots, some garlic. You could add mirepoix if you want. You could add guajillo chilies, molito chilies, whatever you want to add. That's perfectly fine. And then you're going to add about a cup of white wine. And you'll let that white wine reduce by half. And then you're going to start adding your cubes of butter, probably about half stick of butter. Swirl it in there. That sauce will get nice and tight, right? Turn the heat off, season it, boom. You're going to score. Yeah, you'll be awesome. So that's a great way to make a pan sauce. So let's take a look at our recipe. Chef Matthew likes that idea. So do I. Yeah.
Chef, and everybody, just so I can drive Chef's point there, that pan sauce he just described, that is building a sauce out of something that you've sauteed. That can be done every single time you saute in the same method. You throw in the shallot and garlic, you let that sizzle just a little bit, throw in your white wine or chicken stock, something like that. Let it reduce down a little bit, add the butter. Repeatedly, every time you do that, you can make a pan sauce exactly like that. It's that simple.
Oh, I'm so glad you reiterated this because it reminded me of the fact, we've all sauteed, right? When you take the stuff out of the pan, there's always a little something left in that pan, right? Like little golden stuff on the bottom of the pan. That is what we refer to as fond, F-O-N-D, right? Fond is a highly sought after substance in the kitchen. And when you take that white wine and you pour it into that hot saute pan, you're gonna get that bubble sizzle. All that fond is gonna come up off the bottom of the pan and incorporate itself into your sauce and add this nice, rich, savory, umami flavor to it that you really can't get by adding any other substance. So when you get into industry, you will be making pan sauces a lot. So this is a great opportunity to practice. I highly recommend it. Okay, let's take a look at our recipe this week here. Chef Matthew, may back me up on this. Am I on the right page?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sauteed protein.
Sauteed protein. Let's see if we can expand it through modern technology here. Okay. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. Okay. Awesome. This calls for a pork chop or chicken breast. Feel free if you want to use like a New York strip steak. You don't want to use anything too thick because that's really going to increase your cooking temperature, and you're going to have to run into getting the medium wells and rares and all that kind of stuff. So you want to stick with the fillet of a fish or a pork chop, half-inch thick. You probably want to keep it about that. This recipe calls for canola oil. So you're going to put your saute pan over moderate heat. I recommend going a little bit hotter than moderate. And then while the pan is heating, you're going to want to season your protein, salt and pepper. We want you to dredge it in flour this week just to get the technique down. To make dishes like scallopini or Marcella, yeah, you will dredge either the chicken or the veal into the flour, which helps thicken the sauce. And then you're going to add just enough oil to cover the bottom of the pan. Remember, you are not deep frying. And then you're going to place the protein into the pan. Make sure you place the protein away from you. I have been splashed many times by people that are working next to me, and it's rather uncomfortable. You're going to saute over medium heat. You want to give yourself a couple of minutes on each side, and you want to keep turning it back and forth so you brown evenly all the way through. And then you're going to remove it from the pan, and then you can do your pan sauce as we just described. It's basically the beurre blanc, right? Let's see if we have any questions regarding that. Anybody? Alicia, you got a hand up? What's up, Alicia?
I just forgot. I'm going to see. I was into the assignment. I'm going to think about it for a second.
All right, no problem. Let us know when you got your question back. Yeah. All right. How about Rudy? What's up, dude?
Do we have to use white wine? Because I don't have no white wine, and I forgot to purchase some for this week. Do we have to use the white wine, or is there another alternate way we can do it?
You technically don't have to make the sauce, but we're highly recommending that you do for practice purposes. I've seen people do it. Do you have any chicken stock laying around?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you can add chicken stock. Do you have any cream?
Heavy cream?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you do about half chicken stock, half heavy cream. Hit it with a shot of Dijon mustard. Whoo! And that's called chicken Dijonnaise. That's right there.
And that does good on the pork chops?
Huh?
That goes good on pork chops?
Oh, fantastic.
Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, that's good on pork chops. You're gonna love that.
You'll be a
and
local.
it makes your house smell really good too.
Yeah, you'll be a local hero. Yeah.
All right, I'll give that a try, Chef.
All right, thanks, Rudy. How about Amber? You got a quick question?
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
I actually have a question about the whole entire assignment and all about like the protein. Vegetable and the basic mashed potatoes. I'll ask it later.
Okay.
Okay.
You gonna ask the whole question later?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the whole question. You know what I mean.
You're good. You're good. You're good. Well, you're good. All right. How about Blake? What's up, dude?
You said, like you were telling Rudy, you said half chicken stock and half heavy cream. And then how much Dijon mustard do you use?
Depending if you're gonna do like a quarter cup chicken stock, a quarter cup heavy cream, you can add about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, right? And that's just gonna pop that flavor out. Traditionally, that dish would be served over a bed of wilted spinach, and it's called Dijonnaise style. It's from the Dijon region of France. It's a killer dish. It's super delicious.
You can always taste it too and swirl in just a little more mustard if you want. You'll have time to do that and you won't break the sauce. So
yeah. Does that answer your question, Blake? All right, ladies and gents, let's move on to our next dish here, which is going to be the bâtonnet. sauteed batanet vegetables. Do we remember the size of the batanet? Right? Does anybody out there remember it? Have we done batanet?
Quarter by quarter.
Half by half by 2.5.
Oh, you guys are rocking, man. We got a couple answers out there. Yeah, that's pretty good. A batanet technically is a 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 to 3 inches. We're going to call it a French fry cut just to make it simple for all of you to remember. So for this week, you are going to have to do a batanet cut of the of carrots, which would be preferable. And it's basically, I don't want to spend too much time on this recipe, but let's take a look at this recipe here real quick to make sure we know what we're doing. Are we there, Chef Matthew?
There it is.
Right. So we want to make sure when we do this, once again, just be conscientious of the type of oil that you're using. Don't waste your money on extra virgin olive oil. It's just not worth it in the long run. The batanet cut, you're going to have to hold that up against a ruler, I believe. That's a 1/4 inch by 2 to 3 inches, which is very, very important. And then you're just going to get your pan hot, add that vegetable, salt, and pepper, and then toss till cooked. And that's all that it is in that. But that brings us to our next subject: how to toss in a saute pan, right? And this is something that we all strive for, and we practice for many years. It's normal when you first start this. Batanet, don't lie next week and say that none fell out of the pan, because we're not going to eat it, right? Because we know we've done this, right? So, and that's perfectly fine. It's perfectly normal. This is school. This is where we practice. This is where we learn. So to properly toss foods in a saute pan, number one, you take a look at the saute pan here. This is a nice saute pan. It's got a nice heavy bottom on it. If you don't have one to start, you don't have to run out and get one right off the bat, but this is something you should try to strive for, a nice heavy bottom saute pan. And basically what you're going to do, a lot of people, when they first start to do this method, is they try to invoke the entire arm and side of their body into doing this, right? That's not the way this rolls. It's a slight arm movement, but the majority of the movement is done in the wrist. So you have to really focus on that. You're going to slide the ingredients down to the lower portion of the saute pan. You're going to shake it down with your wrist, right? So it gets down right to the lip area, right down here at the bottom, right? The movement of the arm is minimal. So don't be shaking your arm and the side of your body. No twerking in the kitchen. That ain't going to make your food flip in the pan. Okay. With your wrist, right? Now that your food is slid down into the pan, with your wrist, you're going to flip the food upward and back at a slight angle towards the sternum in your chest, right about the center of your chest, right? So you're going to come up and back just a little bit, right? So just like it's displayed here in the picture, right? Up and back with the wrist, not the arm. This is the critical part when it comes to sauteing in a saute pan. You have to be very, very careful about catching the food when it comes back down. So the food, you'll toss, it comes up, and then as the food comes down, you have to give a little bit to, it's just like using a baseball mitt, right? So when you catch a ball with a baseball mitt, you're not like a board, right? You absorb the inertia from the catch, right? And so that is what you're doing. And this next slide is just a technical marvel right here. Look at this. Is that incredible or what? This is the actual motion that is made when we're tossing, right? So he slides it down, up, and then gently catches it. You have to absorb the inertia in the catch with the food. Pretty cool, isn't it? Still don't know how I did that.
Chef, when I used to teach ground classes, we'd teach with toasted bread. So we'd just make toast like you're making breakfast, and then just take one piece of toast and just flip it over, flip it over, flip it over. And it's a really good one because it's not going to make a mess if it hits the floor or your shoe.
Yeah. We used to use dried beans. That's another good one that works real well. These vegetables. With this vegetable recipe that we were just talking about, the batnay vegetable, zucchini, carrots, any other vegetable that batnays well, even celery batnays fairly well. Don't go out and spend a huge amount of money on French organic candy stripe beets to do this. It's just not worth it. We're just trying to get that batnay cut down and the tossing in the saute pan, which is critical. Any questions about that? Let's ask Blake here. What's going on, Blake?
I was going to say with the saute, working at a restaurant, they made my chef put salt in my pan.
Yeah.
And made me keep flipping the salt until I didn't drop any of it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, salt works. Yeah.
That's a way to learn too, is, let them, practice with a little bit of salt in the pan and flip it.
Yeah, that's a good one. I like that idea. So good suggestion. Let's, Amber, what's up? Are you back with us, Amber?
Yeah. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to completely screw up the tossing, because, that's going to kill me when I do it, because if I mess up, I tend to scream and mess up, and I'm like, oh no, crap.
That's the worst thing you can do right now, because you know what? You're learning with yourself. All of you out there need to really apply this. All of you need to have a lot of patience, love, and tolerance with yourself right now, because you're all learning new techniques, right? And if you get angry with yourself, you're not going to move forward, right? And sometimes in order for us to grow, we have to make mistakes. So I'm totally cool with you spilling stuff. That's all right.
No, my dad actually gets mad at me when I do it, not myself. I just laugh at it. My dad's like, what the hell are you doing?
Get him a broom and a dustpan.
Yeah, approach it like you're gonna win. Don't approach it like you've already lost. Just approach it like you got this. You're gonna do it, because you will.
And there is a huge rule of thumb in the kitchen, right? When you have fear of something, you will not succeed, right? If you are fearful of a hot saute pan, you will burn yourself. If you are fearful of a knife, you will cut yourself. If you are fearful of spilling things on the pan, you will spill. Have the confidence. Don't project in your mind that you are going to do it wrong. Just do it. Just do it. You're going to get better at it. A lot of the stuff we teach you is based on repetition, muscle memory, and it just takes practice. Okay? How about,
thank you.
What's that?
I said thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah. I hope your dad's not mad at me. Okay, Ivory. Ivory.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I was just wondering about the vegetables that we had to use. Is there any particular vegetable to stay away from for making the baton?
You want to avoid vegetables that what we refer to as being farinaceous in nature, vegetables that absorb more than their own weight. You could probably technically batnay a portobello mushroom. You wouldn't want to do that. You want to avoid things like eggplant. Try to stick with things that are primarily fibrous that do saute well. Crookneck squash, yellow squash, zucchini, carrots. Those are prime things, and they're extremely inexpensive to work with.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Moving on to the next thing here in CU 101, Culinary Foundations, week 7. Check that out. Chef Matthew, the time is going by so fast. Can you believe it's week 7 already?
Yeah, it's breezing.
Slow down. Okay, so we are going to move on to the world of potatoes and making mashed potatoes. It's not as simple as it sounds, right? A lot of people will make mashed potatoes and it does not work out well in the long run, and we're going to teach you why. But before we move on to that, we're going to take a look at some kind of cool facts regarding mashed potatoes or potatoes in general here. The potatoes, I think, are probably one of the most underestimated vegetables. The average American, we chow down on 124 pounds a year of potatoes, while Germans eat nearly twice as much, right? Thomas Jefferson, huh? What a man. And nobody ever knew he introduced the French fry to America at a White House dinner. So add that to his accolades. That is pretty cool. Potatoes, just like people, are about 80% water, 20% solid. And an 8-ounce baked potato only has about 100 calories. What happens is all the other good stuff that we add to it, the sour cream and the butter and everything else, is what kills us. And then potatoes, by the way, are 99% fat-free food. And it's a fairly nutrient-dense food, meaning that it's pretty high in minerals, vitamins. It's got carbohydrates as well in there. You want to avoid too many fat-free foods because the human body does need fat, by the way. And then the sweet potato, that lovely little guy, the camote, like they say down in Mexico, is considered to be the world's healthiest vegetable based on vitamin and mineral content. So that is pretty cool before we do that. Now, there's two primary types of potatoes out there in this world. There's one is a starchy potato, and the other is a waxy potato. Starchy potatoes would be things like Idaho or russet potatoes. They're fairly high in starch, and starch would be a form of carbohydrates. I don't know if anybody's ever tried to fry potatoes before and they get really dark real quick. Those are actually the starches and the sugars that are caramelizing that cause that to happen. So the Idaho or the russet or the starchy potato is fairly high in starch and very low in moisture. They're great for baking, frying, boiling, making mashed potatoes, and they also hold their shape well, and that's why we use them so often for baked potatoes. However, if you're going to be doing something like a potato salad or something like that, they do not hold up well after they cook, so they kind of crumble and fall apart. So you have to be kind of careful with that. And then taking a look at what we refer to as being waxy potatoes here. The Red Bliss, the Yukon Gold, which is not a potato in the first place, new potatoes. These have low starch content and often become very creamy when making them. So I don't know if anybody's ever made mashed potatoes and like stringy and real creamy. That's probably because they're using red potatoes. Ideal potato for making salad, for roasting them in a roasting pan, and for casseroles and that type of thing. So moving on, I just love potatoes. I think they're so cool. Plus they make adult beverages out of them. When you go to the store to buy potatoes, especially for this exercise, I always recommend buying the larger potatoes. You want to check to make sure that there's no green coming through the surface, and then you want to make sure that there's no like dark spots in there. These are all things you want to check out with the potato before you buy them, or when you're receiving them in industry as well, because that just adds more work to your processing time. So you want to avoid that. Potatoes, we do not store in the refrigerator. That is right, exorcism time. What happens is the starch content multiplies and increases when you store potatoes in the refrigerator. So if you put a russet potato in there that's very high in starch on Monday, you put it into the refrigerator, when you pull it out on Friday, it's going to have a heck of a lot more starch, and it's also going to caramelize when you go to cook it a lot quicker. So potatoes, we should store in a dark, cool place out of the refrigerator. It's very important. And for those of you that are new to working with potatoes, remember that when you peel them and you slice them, you cut open the vegetable fibers and expose them to oxygen, which creates the Malroy effect, which forces those potatoes to turn brown. So make sure as you peel them and process, you put them into clean water to prevent that browning from happening. It's very important. In industry, before we go to this recipe here quickly, in industry, you will work with a lot of potatoes, especially mashed potatoes. Mashed potatoes are what we refer to as a TCS food. TCS being time temperature control for safety, meaning that if you ever make an excessive amount of mashed potatoes and you have to reheat them, it's important that you reheat them to at least 165 degrees for 15 seconds to kill all the bacteria, because they are very sensitive to certain foodborne illnesses because of the high moisture content and the low acidity in the product. As well, when you do go to, if you do a buffet or something like that in industry, make sure that you are keeping those potatoes at proper temperature. They need to be held at least 160 degrees. Don't let them go anything cooler than that, because there is a good possibility that bacteria will begin to multiply at that point in time. Now, for Palms puree, right? It's a very, I call it a $5 word, because when you call mashed potatoes Palms puree, it costs $5 more. After you get done cooking the potatoes, you never ever want to use a mixer, right? Mixers with potato starch alter the behavior of the starch, and that's what creates very dense, thick, stringy potatoes. I don't know if anybody's ever made mashed potatoes at home before in your KitchenAid mixer or with your handheld blender or whatever the case is, and they kind of come out thick and stringy and all that other kind of stuff. That's because the mixer is altering those starches in there, and so you want to avoid doing that. You want to make sure that you always use a food mill or a ricer, and I'll show you what that looks like up here. Oh, well, I would have shown you, but I don't have the picture. Somebody took it. Do you have it, Chef Matthew?
No.
So the ricer or the food mill, I'll pull one up here on the internet so everybody can take a look at one. If you don't have one, it's not necessary to go out and buy one at this point in time, but you should consider getting one for the future. If you don't have one for this recipe, you can go out and you can use a whisk to mash your potatoes. There's a square handle that you can actually mix or mash your potatoes with as well. So let's go back to my screen here and take a look at what a food mill looks like. So am I there, Chef Matthew?
Yeah, there's a couple on the screen there.
Perfect. So a food mill or a ricer, they're extremely similar in nature. I think there's maybe one or two technicalities that separate the two, but you can see right here, they're running the cooked potatoes through the food mill. Once they get pureed in that fashion, then they will be mixed with the cream, milk, or butter, which will create the ideal potato. So that is a piece of equipment that you should, if you don't have, should consider getting in the future. So let's take a look at our recipe here real quick, so we all understand. This recipe calls for russet potatoes. You can get away with using Idaho potatoes. You want to avoid using Kennebunk potatoes. Kennebunk potatoes are what we use to make potato chips and French fries. They don't break down very well, but they are high in starch. So you have your russet potatoes. You're going to peel those potatoes, and then you're going to cut them into a uniform size, cover in water, and simmer till tender. You can take a toothpick, you can take a fork, you can take the tip of a knife and insert it into the potato, and it'll kind of break it apart a little bit. And then you're going to drain them well. A critical step after you drain them into a colander, let them steam for a few minutes to release any excess moisture. You want to release that moisture and replace it with the cream, is what the big secret there is. Then you're going to stir in the butter and the heavy cream and season with salt and pepper to taste. So it's quite simple. And then quickly here, let's take a look at our assignment for this week, and then we'll answer some questions. I'll get to this part real quick. Okay, so this is our assignment page for this week with all three recipes. It's the mise en place, it's the self-identification photo. Make sure you hold up 7 fingers this week in the picture to identify that. Yes. You can use the same self-identification photo for all 3 assignments if you are doing them simultaneously, as well as the sanitizing bucket, etc. So for the sauteed protein, you need to use, you need to have a picture of your proper prepared protein to saute, and then appropriately seasoned protein before sauteing, protein in the pan, and then the protein on the plate. We'd love to see the sauce, but it's not a requirement in this week's rubric, so don't lose any sleep if you don't make it. Bâtonnet, make sure you line that up against a ruler. At least 2 pieces, one to display the length and the other piece to display the width. Very, very important, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch by 2 to 3. Vegetable in the pan, and then vegetable on the plate. Very simple this week, so sweet. And then with the Palms puree, you're going to have the proper mise en place, potato simmering, potatoes in a strainer, drying, potatoes passed through a food mill, and potatoes with cream and butter. And don't forget your narrative sheet, which is critical.
And on the narrative for the production notes, how many recipes are we talking about? 3, that's right. And in the flavor journal, how many recipes are we talking about? 3, right on. Okay, cool.
Yep, that's it. Does anybody have any questions out there? Last minute thoughts, questions? We did it. We did it in 1 hour and 6 minutes. So I was trying to go pretty fast there to get everybody through this quickly, and I apologize if I talked too quickly. But as always, if anybody has any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Chef Matthew is also a wonderful source of information who will love to help you out as well. Ladies and gents, have a fantastic week 7. Don't forget your knowledge checks this Saturday. Very, very important. And make sure that you are sharing your attendance or posting attendance at least every 3 days, no more than 4, right? All right, ladies and gents, have a great night. Talk to you later.
Good night.
Thanks, everybody.